We were near a medium-sized pond, and a creek led into it. The pond was frozen over, but something heavy enough had crushed through it with large feet. There were broken saplings all around, and there were numerous footprints around the pond. It was a kind of lagoon, you could call it, and it was a small clearing. We noticed that the footprints were fresh, so fresh that the ice crystals that broke were still unarranged. There were other ponds around, but they were not frozen over. We heard an unbelievable splash and a grunt of what we thought was satisfaction in the pond right next to us, but the tall grass was separating, I think, the 5 ponds, and the one next to us is where we heard the splash. We got our guns ready to fire. He stood up. My brother went to investigate while we stood at the other pond. He had the strongest gun. As we waited for a response, we could tell he was wide-eyed and staring with a gaping mouth wide open at something. We heard his cuss so many times under his breath, but every other word he got louder. The last word he yelled was the F word. We raced for him through the grass. We stopped dead in our tracks when we saw a big, haired ape-like man creature sitting in the pond. It had no intention of not being seen, but it was extremely shy because it only looked at us one time, but it was for at least 35 seconds. When it got up and was dripping in blood and water, we wondered why was it bleeding. We didn't shoot it. K fell to his knees. J, also the bravest, pointed his gun right at the thing's face. He said he couldn't do it. The thing was lumbered right in front of us. Knowing Jay couldn't shoot, I'll never forget those caramel-covered eyes in the night. The thing was still not at full length of standing. It stood at least 10 feet tall. It made an almost saddening whining sound, then a soft grunt, like it was not a stranger, but it wasn't fond of us, but didn't hate us. It held out its bent elbow, then we knew why it was bleeding. A huge gash followed up its arm very deep. There was no threat in this encounter whatsoever. Then it stood up all the way looking away from us, then took one giant step out of the pond. Then it stopped for 5 seconds, at max, like it was saying goodbye, took 3 steps out of the tall grass, and was gone. About a minute later, we went through the way it went, and there it was, lumbering away slowly. We knew that it knew we were looking at it. The date of the encounter was 1990, an unknown county, unknown town in Washington state. Conditions were snowing, pre-dawn, and dark hours. It says, me and my 3 brothers went on a huge 2-week hike in the mountains.